I am Education USA advisor and I spent more than 20 years in this field. Every year I meet students who receive full financial aid. Getting financial aid is a very difficult task, but it is achievable. It is realistic. You need to have realistic expectations if you would like to receive financial aid. Today, within Education USA Fair, Virtual Education USA Fair, we have a unique possibility, unique opportunity to receive information from the first hand, from our honored guests, representatives, 3 representatives of various US educational institutions. Today we have representatives from University of Colorado, Boulder, St. Cloud University, and Minnesota State University. I usually make mistake in pronunciation of names and feminine names, so our dear guests, our dear representatives of US institutions, I would like, if you would like to introduce yourself, let's go around. So please, now moving on to University of Colorado.
Yes, thank you so much, Victor, for having us. My name is Amir Sadafi, and I am currently serving as Senior Assistant Director for International Graduate Outreach. So I work predominantly with international students who are applying for master's and PhD programs.
Thank you, Amir. And moving on to St. Cloud University.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Victor, for this opportunity. My name is Sean Pitzer. I'm the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions at St. Cloud State University in central Minnesota. So we're about an hour and a half northwest of Minneapolis.
Thank you so much. And finally, Minnesota State University.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Lohrenz from Minnesota State University, Mankato. I'm about an hour, 2 hours drive from my colleague at St. Cloud State over there. And I work as the International Recruitment and Retention Specialist, primarily for undergraduate students, but also for graduate student recruitment. And so I'm looking forward to presenting to you about opportunities for funding our education in the US.
Thank you so much. Our dear US representative, thank you so much for your willingness to share this important experience. So we have 45 minutes only. So let's decide that you will have your presentations up to 10 minutes, and then we will have Q&A session. So if you would like to start your presentations or discussions, please do at the same order. You have up to 10 minutes. So let's go, let's start with University of Colorado.
Sure. So it would be my pleasure to speak about different opportunities that students have to receive funding, particularly at the graduate level, where you have a lot of opportunities for full funding. And one of the things that a lot of students, even domestic US students, are unaware about is that from the bachelor's level of study, you can apply directly into many of our PhD or doctoral programs and study essentially a combined master's and PhD program that lasts typically 5 years, generally between 4 and 6 years. We say average around 5 years, in which the first 2 years you're taking predominantly taught courses leading to a master's degree, and then you transition into a more research-focused period of study in your doctoral studies. And if you are accepted into any of our doctoral programs, you're guaranteed full financial support for the duration of your study. So that includes the 5 years, and that typically comes to students in the form of teaching and research assistantships. These are essentially contracts between you and the faculty in the department in which you are studying for you to work as an assistant with them at a maximum of 20 hours per week. If you're a teaching assistant, that can take the shape of perhaps assisting a professor grading courses, maybe teaching a smaller seminar of a larger lecture, maybe even teaching your own courses yourself, depending on the department. And if you're a research assistant, that can take all different kinds of shapes and forms, but typically you're assisting your faculty and professors with their research projects or ongoing research that's going on in the department in which you're studying. And the reason why the university is able to then provide you that funding so that you get essentially a tuition waiver where you don't have to pay tuition for your courses, and then you're paid a stipend for your work as an assistant in that department. And so it's a mutually beneficial relationship between you and the faculty. The faculty depend on their graduate students to assist them with a lot of their duties, their teaching and research duties that they can't do alone. And in exchange, they provide that financial support and guarantee for their students so that they can really focus their efforts and attention on their studies and not have to be concerned too much at the same time about finances and financial support while they're studying throughout their programs. Now, again, that's predominantly reserved towards research-focused programs. At the master's level, professional programs like a professional program in business, for example, that wouldn't offer you the same opportunities for assistantships, at least as widely. There may be limited number or small number, but generally, the type of full funding offers that you're receiving are going to be for research-focused programs, be they master's or PhD. And that can be research in any field, from social science, natural science, to engineering. So it's not limited to a specific field of study, but more the type of a degree program and the level at which you're studying. And I think I will leave it at that to give my colleagues an opportunity to address some issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amir. Thank you so much. And I give the floor to St. Cloud University. We will agree that we will have all questions at the end, right? Okay, cool. St. Cloud University.
Excellent. Thank you, Amir. That was a very robust explanation of graduate assistantships, but I also want to point out that there are many different forms of funding opportunity. Assistantships are just one. And so for many of us, our classification is not a research one like the University of Colorado. So we are more applied in our education. We have fewer research disciplines. And so things to think about as you're going through your education are really what you want to do. Do you want to be a researcher? Do you want to apply your knowledge in the professional environment, in business or education, places like that? So for us, and I'll fully disclose that Minnesota State Mankato and my colleague there, we are part of the same consortium of colleges and universities across our state. So there will be some similarities, but each university and college is going to have very distinct financial aid programs. And so Alyssa may be able to describe what's happening in Mankato. But for us, we really have three different types of assistantships. So the first assistantship type that does come with those funding packages, similar to what Amir has described, is a teaching assistantship. And so some of our graduate students are teaching our undergraduate classes in English disciplines or English as a second language. But really think of it as you're teaching students that are in lower division classes. So you're teaching freshmen and sophomores for the most part. We also do offer, in our instance, a very limited number of research assistantships, really because our programs are applied programs. And so we're practicing the craft rather than doing the research. That's not to say that we don't offer those in programs like biology and things like that, but that's really not our focus. The third type of assistantship is an office assistantship. So in my office, we have numerous students that assist us, that we pay their tuition, we provide a stipend, but they serve us as office workers, and they're doing things that our professional staff members do on a daily basis. So in our office, we have a recruitment graduate assistant that does events like this all over the world and all over the country. We also have students that process our applications, as well as work in office duties that really provide customer service. So our job in our context, we really firmly believe that part of what we give to you, in addition to tuition, funding, and stipend, is that we help you understand and learn how to be a professional in higher education or your chosen field. We also offer numerous scholarships. And so really the main takeaway that I want everybody to have before I yield is that every institution has different packages of financial aid opportunities. So check our websites, call us, send us emails. The main thing is really to understand that there are over 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States, and every one of us is different. So it can be complex, it can be confusing, but just know that all of us and our colleagues around the country are here to help and help you understand what our financial offerings are.
Thank you
Great.
so much. I'm giving the floor to Minnesota State.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks, Amir and Sean, for the overview and the explanation. I'm actually going to share my screen here because I am a visual aid person, so I always like having a screen to look at as well. So hopefully this is helpful for you. Like my colleagues mentioned, there are many different types of funding available for graduate students. So of course, the number one source of funding tends to be assistantships at the graduate and PhD levels. And like my colleague said, there's different types of assistantships, so I won't go into all of the details with that. But the general assistantship is like what my colleague at St. Cloud State mentioned, where students would have a graduate assistantship tied to a student service office or campus department where they're doing general office work and actually almost treated like an employee of the university, and then in return receive a stipend towards their living expenses as well as a tuition waiver, and then of course research assistantships, teaching assistantships. My colleague also mentioned fellowships as well, and fellowships have very different meanings across university programs. In some cases, it could be tied to something that's similar to an assistantship where you have a contract and you're obligated to do research or work for an academic department or maybe teach a university class. But at other institutions, it actually could just be a scholarship towards your program. So there's many different types of assistantships that sometimes are used. The term might be used interchangeably at different institutions, but might have different meanings. So essentially just know it's merit-based funding towards your graduate program as well for those types of assistantships. Then of course there's grants and scholarships. So this would be something based generally on your academic merits, whether you're applying to the master's level program or a PhD program. There are many different types of scholarships that could be offered at different institutions. So it's a very good idea to contact the graduate admissions office as well as your academic department and graduate coordinator who oversees the program that you're applying to find out what specific grants or scholarship opportunities might be available. Then of course there is an option for student loans as well. This is kind of that last resort option that students want to avoid taking out an educational loan if they can, of course, but in some cases it might not be avoidable. So it is also a good idea to reach out to the university and program that you're applying for to see if they have loan funding options through that institution. Some universities do offer low interest rate loans for their students. That's a little bit less common. In other cases, you could take out a private loan through another financial institution, and there's many different types of educational loans, so I won't get into the weeds and details of that, but just be aware that's an option. Then how to find funding at a different university. This, of course, is going to vary from campus to campus, but sometimes with the program that you're applying to, there may be automatic consideration during the admission process for graduate assistantships. So you might actually just, based on your academic merits, be reviewed by the faculty from that department for a graduate assistantship or maybe for a scholarship for that program, and you don't even have to apply separately. In other cases, you might have to look for scholarships on the program website and financial resource pages of the university and do a direct application to some of those scholarships or assistantships as well. And then, like I mentioned, you can always contact the graduate admission counselor and the academic faculty from the department to find out what types of funding might be available. And then, of course, there's outside external scholarship search platforms. And if you actually take a screenshot of this hyperlink here, that link.mnsu.edu, it's not a link to our university, it's a shortened link actually to a US News and World Report list of graduate funding and scholarships for some of the top scholarship search databases. So I'll leave that up for just a second. Note that link as you're going through your research. And then as you're applying for graduate funding, of course, everybody wants to apply for funding, but it is limited and it is competitive. So some things to think through as you're applying for your graduate admission and considering funding opportunities is what makes you a competitive candidate? What would make you stand out among your peers that are also applying for the same funding opportunities? And why do you deserve a funding funding scholarship. So as you're going through this process, it's good to do some self-assessment as well. Do you have distinctions or accolades or awards that you have received that could set you apart from some of your peers? Do you have leadership qualities that you're bringing to the research team that you're applying for a fellowship? What are your academic and professional goals? Does it align with the assistantship goals as well with your academic program and department? And also, are you bringing any specialized skills or training with you to that program as well that could benefit the university as part of your assistantship or as part of your fellowship? And then of course, are you academically competitive? Did you have strong GPA, test scores if you have to submit the GMAT or GRE? And are you a well-rounded candidate? Are you focused just on academics, or have you been involved in extracurricular activities, volunteer activities, etc.? These are all things that you'll likely have to demonstrate when you're putting together an application for funding, such as an assistantship application or a scholarship application. So just very, very briefly, because I want to leave time for Q&A, thinking about putting together a strong application for scholarships and assistantships. Keep in mind that that essay is going to be very important. That's going to be your interview on paper, essentially, for the academic department to get to know you and make a decision if you're going to be the best candidate for either an assistantship or a scholarship. You'll also need to put together a professional CV and resume, and you'll need to provide references who know you and can speak to your qualities as well as your skills. And then this goes for whether you're applying for admission to a program or applying for assistantship funding or scholarships. Have other people look at your application and review your materials for basic errors or typos or mistakes. It's always a good idea to have somebody look over that. And so I don't want to take too much time now. I'll leave the rest of the time for Q&A, but that is a very brief overview of types of funding and ideas and tips that you can hopefully take to your next step when looking for scholarships and assistantships.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So we have for now several questions. I will write you these questions and you will decide who wants to address this question. Question number 1 from Alexander. I know that he's from Belarus. He's asking, is it possible to get funding for a double degree? How does it affect the probability of receiving a scholarship? So is anybody here who wants to address this question?
I can address it as far as it goes with some of our dual degree programs that we have with MBA and other fields of study. So it's possible that you can receive funding for part of the program and not other parts of the program. So for example, students that are doing a joint environmental studies master's and a master's of business administration could have their environmental studies portion funded, but would have to pay out of pocket for their MBA program. But it really does depend. So it's because depending on the program that you're applying to, as my colleagues have mentioned, each university is different, each program is different. It's really gonna come down to, at least in the case of our university, the individual programs that are comprising the dual degree programs. So if independently you could receive funding for both of those programs, you can expect that as a dual degree student, you would also receive funding as well.
Thank you so much, Amir. Can I go to the next question? Okay. Next question is, in order to get an assistantship scholarship, should I indicate it in the application or a personal statement, or I will be considered for this kind of financial support anyway? Who is going to address?
I can jump in on that one. So it really, again, I know we keep saying this, it really depends on the program that you're applying to. So it's a great idea to build a relationship with your graduate admission counselor who's ever helping you through that application process, because you can ask that specific question. Some programs will give you automatic consideration during the application process for funding. So it's very possible an academic department has a set amount of scholarships or assistantships that they give out each semester or each year to their candidates, and they might do automatic consideration for assistantships, fellowships, or scholarships during that admission process. But in many cases, you will likely have to do a direct application that is separate from the admission process. where you would directly apply for scholarships or assistantships. So again, clarify that with the program that you're applying for to see if it's direct application or automatic consideration. And usually in the graduate scholarship portal, there oftentimes is a section where you can put in if you would like to be considered for financial aid or for graduate assistantship in the application. So that question might be asked as well.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And we have the next question addressed directly to Amir, University of Colorado. What are the requirements for full funding? Olga is asking this question.
Yes, Olga. So that's going to be very, very specific to each individual department. Now, as I was mentioning, and as Elizabeth made very clear, some programs are going to require separate requirements or a separate application for funding or scholarships. But for the programs that offer full funding at the PhD level at the University of Colorado Boulder, essentially there's no separate application process to receive that funding. So based off of the application that you submit, your application profile, the materials that you upload alongside your application, if you're admitted into the program, at the time of admission, typically when you receive the award letter that says that you've been accepted into the program, you'll also receive a letter that explains the funding that you are receiving. So in another way of saying it is that the requirements for the funding are essentially the same requirements of being accepted into any of these PhD programs. But again, that's going to be very specific to each university and each program. So important, again, as we can re-emphasize, and I think we should re-emphasize, to really looking at those individual departments and establishing relationships with individuals like ourselves or graduate program coordinators at specific departments to find out if there are specific requirements for funding for the individual programs that you're interested in.
Thank you so much, Amir, and thank you for great advertising of your institution. And we have another question from Jane. Hello once again, and thank you for this wonderful chance to get this first-hand info from you. My question is, what makes a student who applies to a master's degree stand out? Is it in academic knowledge, creativity, internships, exchange programs, excellent essays, life experience? What do we need to focus on more? Who is this role model master's degree applicant? So many questions in one question. You can divide, you can split your answers if you like. Thank you.
I think maybe I'll start.
Evgeny.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. So the answer to your question with academic knowledge, creativity, etc., the answer is yes. It's all of those things. With our students, many of us serve working professionals, so people that have been out of school for a period of time. The average age of our graduate student at St. Cloud State is 32 years old. So we have many people that work full-time. We also have a few people, many people that come straight from their bachelor's degree to their master's degree. What we're looking for oftentimes is not necessarily that you're checking off boxes related to a grade point average or a GRE score, but we do want to know what those life experiences are, because your life experiences enrich our programs and enrich the experiences of your colleagues. And so it really, it's, I don't want to say all of those things are equally weighted, because it varies from institution to institution and program to program. But it really is, all of those things are important, and many of us are going to weigh each of those things in our admission and application process.
Thank you so much. I will give some time for students to think about next questions, because we have only one question remain. I would like to ask you, my colleagues, maybe difficult question. I know that you are involved in recruitment, and this is probably not your sphere, but all of you was a students in US institutions. And I think that you also received financial aid, even small. So my question is, what typical mistakes usually students do when they look or apply for financial aid from US educational institution. One mistake or two. I will start with mistakes because I work with Opportunity Program. It's a great program, by the way. This is a State Department program which provide additional financial aid for talented students with low income. So some students think that financial aid from US institution may be connected with some kind of charity. This is a misconception. It is a strong competition, and you need to show how powerful, how competitive you are as a student. So if you can share some just small examples of maybe misconceptions, misunderstanding, mistakes coming from local and international students, I think it will be very helpful to our audience to know. Thank you.
Sure, I could start, and just a couple of simple ones. One is just timing, being sure that you apply by certain deadlines. A lot of the funding, they will only consider applicants that apply before the deadline, and then anyone that comes beyond, they're disadvantaging themselves for receiving full consideration for any type of scholarship or funding. But even one that I see from domestic ones in my own personal experience was just not taking advantage of the resources that are out there. Maybe you yourself think that, oh, I'm not competitive candidate, and not trying. The students my friends and colleagues and students that I advise, those that apply to the most, that really spend the time to look for those opportunities, typically find a lot of success in putting that effort in to that search. So as much as Victor is completely right that this is a competitive process and that you should put your best version of yourself forward in these applications, do not be hesitant to apply to as many opportunities as possible, right? Because there's nothing that it can't hurt you to apply to different types of scholarships and funding opportunities as widely as possible. None of our schools are going to limit the number of scholarships you get, especially if you're getting funding from external organizations. So, I know students, domestic and international students, that receive so many scholarships that they were essentially being paid to study even at the undergraduate level in the US. So my biggest advice would be for students to apply as widely as possible.
Thank you so much, Amir. I would like a little bit to add to your train of thought regarding deadlines. There is a student's disease. They wait until the last day. I don't know what happens to American students, but for Belarusian students, it's a real disease. They wait until the last day. So guys, dear students, if you are looking to receive financial aid, this is a very competitive, intellectual, and by the way, very expensive project. If you think to postpone all your actions until the last day of deadline, you are not serious with your application. You have much lower chances to receive financial aid, that's all. So forget about this disease and try to apply as soon as possible with very quality application kit. Thank you so much. Who is going to add additional life hacks or mistakes?
Yeah, I will add from a personal experience, actually. This wasn't for graduate funding. This was for an undergraduate scholarship that I applied for an international exchange program. And I actually was denied the scholarship the first time. And I applied for it, and one of the reasons I ended up being denied is this particular application had essay prompts that they wanted us to answer. And instead of answering all the questions directly in the way that I thought I should, I kind of avoided the specific information that the scholarship committee asked for and was looking for. And I made that mistake and not having somebody look through my application before I submitted it. So I did not receive that scholarship for that year. And then a year later, I reapplied for that scholarship, and I learned from my mistakes, and I actually was able to get the scholarship the second year. So that's a very personal example, but beyond that, what I learned from it and what I would advise students is all the applications for graduate funding is going to look very different. So if you're applying for an assistantship, there may be a position description that talks about the roles and the responsibilities related to that assistantship and the types of skills and qualities that you need to bring to it. So if you have to write a cover letter or a statement of purpose of why you're the best fit for that assistantship position, it's a really good idea to answer the specific prompts that they're providing about why you're the best fit for that program. Pay attention to the key skills, the key words that they're using in that description, and tie your personal experiences into that. So it seems like very basic information, but believe me, it makes a big difference to be very clear, very concise about your personal experiences and values and how that fits into that role. The same could be said for a scholarship essay, or even a general essay that you're writing for admission to the program as well.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Anybody else would like to add their own experience or somebody's experience?
Yeah, I'll be brief. I think the biggest mistake that people make is thinking that graduate school is not for them, or that it's too late, or they're too old. That is absolutely not the case. Whether you're 23 years old or 35 years old or 53 years old, it's not too late for you to achieve your goals and aspirations. For me, my own experience, I went to community college and I took a year off to work. It wasn't for me at that point in time, but I finished my undergraduate degree later and then worked for 10 years while I completed my master's degree while I worked full time. So the journey is always different for everyone. It's sort of symbolic of a river, that it's not a straight line. And so always focus on yourself and what your needs are, and don't wait and delay your dream achievement. And also, I'll echo, apply early, whether it's for admission or for scholarships and funding, because many of us require recommendations, and that means that your fate is in the hands of other people. So do it early and take care of yourself, and don't wait for other people to do things for you.
Thank you so much. It was really very interesting to listen to your personal experiences. And now probably is my turn to share my experience. Personally, I didn't study in the United States, but I traveled a lot in different professional development opportunities. I visited many universities across the United States, and I talked a lot with different international students who study in the United States, in the US institutions, and with financial aid also. Also, I have more than 10 years experience of working with opportunity students. This is the best what you can find in Education USA advising profession. So what I realized for myself, dear students, first of all, this is the common mistake. If you will think about financial aid as a purpose, as an essential for all your actions, you probably will not get this financial aid. This is misunderstanding. Think about financial aid in different way. Think about your education in the United States as an instrument which will help you to achieve knowledge and skills you are looking for. And you know how you will implement this knowledge and skills, not in the United States, but in your country. And if essentially you plan your strategy in this way, you will definitely obtain financial aid, because financial aid is given only to motivated students, to those who are looking to obtain knowledge and skills. Don't think about money. Think about education. Think about knowledge and act only in this direction. In this way, you will definitely receive financial aid. This is the rule which I observed from our opportunity students. And in Belarus, we already recorded more than 35 interviews, life hacks. Students share their life hacks, recommendations, how to obtain financial aid. So now we're talking not about how to obtain financial aid, but we're talking about how to use your energy in an appropriate way. and how to be more competitive with other international students. So this is my impact, this is my observation of working with our students. Thank you so much. And we have questions from Georgi Petriashvili. He is asking question: is assistantship enough to cover the costs of tuition? Who is going?
Yeah, I can talk about how they're structured at University of Colorado Boulder. So they are, assistantships are always structured to provide you a tuition waiver of full-time study. So up to a certain number of credit hours, and you wouldn't have to pay tuition with the assistantship offers that we are providing for our PhD students.
Thank you.
It's very similar I'll just add to that, it's very similar at Minnesota State Mankato as well. Most of our assistantships are full-time and based to cover full-time study of your credits, as well as up to $10,000 for a living stipend each year.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
We're very similar.
Sorry.
I do want to also point out that it's important to ask questions related to tuition waivers. Because many institutions charge additional fees in terms of course fees and campus fees and things like that, that oftentimes those assistantships do not cover. So you may still have out-of-pocket cost. So the main point is ask questions exactly what your assistantship does cover and provide.
Thank you so much. I have a question again to you, all of you, regarding application fee waivers. I know that application fee waivers mostly given for undergraduate study. But what about your institutions? For some students, especially those who are involved in opportunity, it is crucial also to receive application fee waivers. Is this a realistic task regarding your institutions if talking about international students?
So I can start off. So at the graduate level, it's always up to the discretion of the department to grant those fee waivers. So it's important to reach out to them, and you're not going to be successful if you just write an email that says, can I have a fee waiver with a question mark? You know, so you should be able to communicate some compelling reason of why the university should give you a fee waiver. You know, talk about some financial hardship, as Victor mentioned. You know, obviously being a student as a part of the Opportunity Fund, that's something you would want to highlight when asking for a fee waiver. In other cases, like I personally am able to give a limited number of fee waivers to international students. So if you send me an email directly, and I'm sure I could share that in the chat, then I can work with you to provide a fee waiver for an application for anyone that's attending this session, for example.
Yeah, at St. Cloud State, we're a little bit less flexible with fee waivers in the application system, partly because of the system we use, but we do offer waivers for Fulbright applicants, veterans and spouses of the U.S. Armed Services, different things like that. But similar to what Amir says, definitely double check with us. But the main point is don't just drop us an email saying, I'm Sean, can I have a fee waiver? Especially if we haven't had a conversation before. We can help at a lot of times and in a lot of ways, but we need information and we need to have a conversation to help you the best.
Thank you so much. I see that time is running so fast. We have just few minutes, so we can talk about financial aid until early morning, but we have only 2 questions and we need to finish. So Daria Kulevska is asking, what fields of the professional CV should postgraduate pay more attention before they'll send it to the universities? Oh, until morning. Okay, who is going to answer? What fields of the professional CV should postgraduates pay more attention?
I would kind of reverse this and say, look at what is your experience. Are you applying directly from a bachelor degree program to a master's program? Or did you take some gap years and now you have some professional work experience? Because your experiences is what, the skills and academic experience is what you can speak to the most within your CV, as well as any research experience that you may have had during your bachelor degree program as well. So I would summarize it and say typically the top things that students highlight at the very beginning of their CV would be their education background, any professional experience that they may have, as well as any research experience, followed by any specific skills. So if you have certifications in something, or you're proficient in specific software or something like that that's related to the assistantship that you're applying to, those are things that you're going to want to highlight. But that's going to look very different for somebody who's taken 10 years between their bachelor to master's degree and has a lot of professional experience, versus a student who's applying from a bachelor to directly to a master's degree and doesn't have that experience. But maybe you would have more research experience from your bachelor's thesis or other programs that you participated in as a student. So there's not a cookie cutter answer, and I don't think any admission counselors want it, or those who are reviewing the application want to see the cookie cutter answers. They want to see your experiences and what makes you competitive and stand out.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And 2 questions in 1 question. I know PhD students are prioritized for assistantships and scholarships. I'm interested if it is possible to receive full financial support for master's degree. And second question, will my application be considered if only exam scores will be received after deadline?
Yeah, I could take this one. So yes, master's students can receive full financial support. Typically, it's not as widespread or guaranteed. If you are doing a combined, like direct entry, as Elizabeth was mentioning, like applying into a program directly from a bachelor's degree into a PhD program, then the master's portion would for sure be fully funded at our university, for example. And when it comes to the deadline, if you have submitted all the other materials, but maybe your score will come after the deadline, that's where those personal relationships with the graduate admissions committees and graduate program managers at different departments is really important. Because if you inform them, in most cases, I know, especially this year, especially for students that are applying for fall 2021, there's a lot of flexibility because of the COVID pandemic. A lot of departments are not requiring even GRE scores. So there's a lot of flexibility there, but again, communication is key. You want them to know that they are expecting a score and that you just haven't forgotten to or are not intending to send a score that will come after the deadline.
Thank you so much, Amir. And the last question, I rephrased a little bit because it is too long. A student, Nicola is asking that he totally changed his career and his basic education he received. He is not more involved in this field of study. He's thinking about master's degree, about getting master's degree, and he's asking, in this case, when he's changing this career path, what will make his application stronger? This is a really difficult question, and I think you need, Nicola, to apply with this information, with this question, to very strong, very qualified Education USA team in your country. And I'm sure they will help you, because we do not have much time to explain all the details. If somebody can just share a few seconds to answer this question, it will be great. If not, we need probably to finish this session and move again to chatting with representatives of various educational institutions. So any ideas?
Yeah, very quickly, that is a typical student that is going to apply to many of our master's degree programs. Our students change majors as undergraduates very frequently. And then once we enter the workforce, we change careers very often. So if you are a pharmacist and want to become a history teacher, it's possible. There are ways to do that. So open lines of communication, and in terms of demonstrating what you need on your application for a graduate program, it's about skills, abilities, and knowledge and relationships. And that's really what we're going to be able to evaluate in the event of an applicant that's really changing disciplines or changing careers.
Thank you so much, dear U.S. educational institution representatives. Thank you so much for your participation, for your knowledge, for your expertise. This is a virtual fair, and we really think that next year you will have a chance, time, and possibility for the real fair in our countries. Because I don't want to explain what is the difference, but we really invite you, at least to Belarus, definitely. Please visit us and communicate more with our students. You will find that they are really great and they really have chances to study your institutions. So, Ramila, my mission is over. Please direct us. I give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor, and thank you to all the panelists. Thank you for sharing this useful information with all the students, and I'm sure they learned a lot from your information, from the information you shared with them. Thank you very much, and this is all for these panel session discussions. And students, for students, I would advise just to go to the university booths and to chat with the specific university representatives to ask their own questions, going into more details with the university representatives directly. So this is the advice from Education USA Advisor to all the students participating at this fair right now. Good luck to everyone and enjoy the fair.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Ramila. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.